All right, welcome and good morning. How's everybody doing today? It is a beautiful Saturday morning, and I am here with my beautiful wife, Melissa Ramos. We're going to be doing, I'm going to be interviewing her today. We're going to be talking a little bit about strengths and relationships. So raise your hand if you guys are, so first off, we have a good crowd today. I just want to thank you guys. We have a good crowd. I have people I have not seen in a very long time, and this is going to be super fun because I have done, when I first started Strengths, I did a fun little interview. This was like 2 years ago. So I have come a long way. We have come a long way for sure. And just understanding strengths, understanding the dynamics of it within our relationship. So super excited to be here. But let me just kick this off with doing some, some introductions. That way, so we can, kind of move this thing forward here. So pictures of my family, right? I usually show some of these, but these are my boys here. These Sebastian and Manolo. In fact, we had a chance to talk to Sebastian for the first real time was on Friday. He's in the MTC in Provo, ready to, serving his mission and super excited. And, and he's just, he's having conversations with 10 different people while he's, trying to have a conversation with us. So
literally he's talking with other people.
That's him through and through, and I if you guys were on the Saturday Q&A, someone asked a phenomenal question about Achiever. Wednesday Q&A. Someone asked a question about Achiever, and my son happened to have Achiever at number one, and so I used him as an example. But it's so, and he has his relationship strengths at the very end. But once you get to know who you are, you understand how you operate, you understand how these talents show up in terms of motivators and needs. And it's definitely through and through for Sebastian, for sure. So anyways, that's just it was super fun to see. And second off is I just want to introduce 3 Key Elements, or just give a huge shout out to 3 Key Elements. I'm a coach and trainer for 3 Key Elements, as well as a Clifton Strengths certified coach. And I have the privilege and honor to work with them to empower the minds and help people manage their emotions, help people reach their goals. And Kirk and Kim Duncan have been doing it very successfully for quite some time. So I feel honored and privileged to be a part of this team in bringing strengths and the strengths culture to 3 Key Elements. This has been super fun to meet with. I've had a chance to talk with recent students. I've had a chance to talk with students that got to know them, that started working with them 15 years ago, 12 years ago, another couple. And it's been neat to bring strengths into some of those conversations, and for them to see the value of that on top of emotional management, right? Mindset, that sort of thing. So it's super fun. And then just to give, another huge shout out, they've been doing this for a very long time. So they're very skilled at it, at 3 Key Elements. And again, being a part of this team, I feel honored and privileged and blessed. And so super excited to be here. Be here. But this is fun. So this is going to be super fun. So what I'd love to do as we go through this interview, we're going to be doing our normal interview questions. We're going to be doing a lot of those things. But you know what I'd love for you guys to do is I would love for you to ask questions too. Like if there's anything that you would love to know as we go through our assessment, as we go through our reports, as we go through kind of this idea of relationships and strengths. And for those of you that don't know, this isn't a little bit of passion of mine. The relationships and strengths is a major passion of mine, merely because one of the things that Melissa and I have always been involved in, she was the introduction to self-development for me 20 plus years ago. Carol Tuttle, Remembering Wholeness, she taught me how to do tappings, vision boards, declarations. We were doing all these things. We used to do money lists. Remember those?
Of course.
When we do those, I'd pull my affirmations out of the glove box and I'd be reading them. And
in our little $350 apartment.
Yeah, it was great.
It cost $350 a month. That's back in the days.
Yeah,
when
fantastic.
we were our we were making our money lists of, that was interesting to change our mindset and our conversation around money. And we continue to do things like that. We've done it with, like, I would have to say, we've changed our mind and conversation around the kind of people and friends we can associate with. And many of you are our friends and associates. And so I feel super blessed to have you in our lives. We've done it around like the neighborhood and communities we want to be in. And so it's really just, that's something that I've always been passionate about is mindset. And I apologize if I sound a little, I'm coming out of a systemic upgrade. So I may have to pause and take a sip of water occasionally, and I hope that that's okay.
So self-development has always been a major part of our marriage from the first year we got married. And a part of self-development has always been relationship development. We've always wanted to have this idea of, as we watched our parents, right, and their dynamics and other relationships, we thought, we want something great for us. We want something great for our kids. And so we pursued seminars. We pursued all kinds of different seminars, retreats. We've done group programs. We've even gone to counseling because we're like, okay, how do we work better on communication language, right? And so all of these things because we've ultimately wanted to improve. And I have to say, there has not been a single, we've learned from all of those things. We've gathered value from all those things, but not a single one of those engagements, activities, seminars, environments could have told me exactly on paper the way my wife naturally thinks, feels, and behaves. Now, we say that to each other, right? We're in the heat of the moment. Maybe we're feeling good and we say, you know what I need? This is what I need, right? Or this is what I think, right? Or we're in the opposite of the good heat of the moment, right? When we're having our own, little struggle or seminar, and I say what I need, or she says what she needs, and it's mixed with emotion, right? It's mixed with all these different things. One of the great things around the Clifton Strengths Assessment is it becomes very clear. There's specific words, there's specific definitions to these words, there's specific patterns. And so there has not been a single thing that I've ever done, that we've ever done that has answered questions the way her assessment has clearly answered questions for me. It is like light bulb after light bulb. I'm like, oh, this is why she does this. Oh, this is why she does that. Oh, this is why.
But you never say that in the moment.
Yes.
Don't call it out. So note number 1 in your notebook, I do not call out people's strengths, especially if we're in an argument. Don't do it. It's not nice. I'm like, oh, I know. Mental note. We have inside
mental
thoughts
note
and thoughts we verbalize. Some are just inside thoughts.
So I want to start off with this quote here. Okay, as we move forward with today and what we're going to be talking about today, I want to start off with this quote before we jump into the interview. And as you think this is a quote by Don Clifton, as you think seriously about the unique constellation of talents that you have, you recognize that other people each have their own unique combination of talents as well. You begin to see them through a different lens. The things that used to annoy, irritate, frustrate, don't understand, misunderstand, are now seen, as the very things that make the other person productive or successful. This statement right here, this quote has taught me more about people, about life, about relationships. Not just is this relationship different in terms of her unique talents but our sons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are the people I work for, Kirk and Kim, right? They're unique talents. The people I partner with, in a business that we have, all of these different things. This is become so true to me. And it's a core belief now, a core foundation of my belief system, that the very things that I misunderstood, the very things that I didn't comprehend, the very things that frustrated me about other people, and in this case, in our relationship, are now the very things that I realized, oh my gosh, this is what makes Melissa awesome. This is why she's so good at so many things. This is why she has certain needs. This is why she sees things in different ways. And it really answered literally a million questions that I had about trying to be a good husband, right? Or a good friend, or a good partner, or a good father. And it really helped me realize, oh no, I am great. I'm great in my own way, right? Not trying to make her way match my way and make it great. Someone asked another question when they were asking the question about Achiever last week. They said, how do we get on the same page? And that's probably that phrase I've used in our marriage just as much as I used baby, we got this, right? You guys have,
I
you guys
just
have
want to be on the same
I
page.
just want to be on the same page, right? And I have said that a million times over. And it's now something I don't even say anymore because I
We
realize
just
that,
need to be in the same book.
yes,
all.
that's it. That's
We
it.
just need to be
I
in the
love that.
same story.
Yeah.
That's it. I've got my table of contents. You've got your index, whatever
Yeah.
we'll meet in the middle somewhere.
Yep.
Um,
But this idea of being on the same page, we've realized that
for us,
it's caused more conflict and frustration because I'm trying to force her into my page the way I naturally think, feel, and behave, and vice versa. And so understanding, again, the way people naturally think, feel, and behave, you can be, and I love what she said, you can be in the same book without being in the same, without specifically being on the same page. You can still accomplish the same goals, reach the same results, be engaged in the same, even activities, but being on the same page within those, because I naturally think, feel, and behave differently than what she does, there is always going to be different dynamics. And the more and more you accept that, the more and more you're open to that, the easier the relationship is. I have to say that the tension in our relationship has dramatically gone down merely because I'm not trying to get her on my page, right? I'm not trying to convince her, hey, you should think this way because I think this way. Or I'm not trying to totally understand where her come from is, because it's not my purpose to necessarily understand, but to just listen and acknowledge, oh, that's where you're coming from. That's cool.
right. Kind of like, and maybe it's unnecessary to have another analogy, but you want to be in the same car, right? We want, do you want to go here? Yes, I want to go here. Do you want to go there with me? Yes, I want to go there with you. Okay, hop in. What's your role? Are you the navigator? Are you co-pilot, or are you driving?
Yeah.
And so I think naturally we've heard, let's get on the same page, but we can't both be driving, or there's, give me the pedal. What are you doing? I'm steering. You're steering wrong. So it's wrong. Really about a cooperation, which turns into really an appreciation. And I think that's what that quote was reflecting, was really an appreciation to be able to go, oh, okay, I see. You have to be that quirky and you have to hop on your ideas. That's what makes you run.
Yeah.
That's what is good about you. And so you can then switch things that were irritations into an appreciation once you understand the motives behind the way people operate.
Yeah.
So especially as a spouse, to be able to understand the way he operates, what drives him, what moves him, then I can appreciate the way he behaves, and it can turn into gratitude instead of resentment.
Yeah.
And that's a really, we've been married, it's coming up on 22 years. That's a really big shift. So especially for me, who's a bit of a perfectionist and who's very, I examine the steps that I take before I take them, and to see him, I say, oh, he just pops off and does stuff. Like, what are you doing? And I used to feel like it was reckless, but now I can view it as passionate, and I can see why he does the way he does. And honestly, if I was married to somebody like me, we'd be waiting a long time to do things, and that wouldn't be good either. So, and I can appreciate that he now asks the right kinds of questions to help get me on board for things, or he can understand when we make a decision that's difficult for me. He can have some compassion for why it's difficult instead of trying to push me through the process, if that makes sense.
So first off, so Maya Lisa, I love your question here. I love your question. So I'm going to answer your question, but before we do, I want to start off just introducing. So we've talked so that we introduce our strengths together, right? So everybody can kind of see what we're dealing with, right? For those of you that don't know,
should have maybe done our top. You've got this one.
Okay, so this right here, so you can see, right? My you see my top, my 34 filter, right? My unique strengths filter, and then you see Melissa's unique strengths filter. Now, if you look at them, we actually share, out of the top 10, we actually share 6 of them. And so what's interesting is you would think, right? Oh, we must totally get along. We must be the same. We must, Everything must be perfect. In fact, if you look at right here, now this is why I became a strengths coach. Okay. And I've said this before. I became a strengths coach because of number 3. When I first took the assessment, when we first took the assessment, we were invited from a friend to take the assessment. We took the assessment, we looked at it, super cool, whatever, right? We didn't have anyone guiding us. We didn't have anyone answering any questions. But from that moment on, what I took this assessment because I liked it. But when I looked at the assessment, I told my wife, hey, I'm an activator at number 3. You're an activator at number 3. And what did I do? I made the assumption that we both activate in the same way, right? And that was a
rookie mistake.
big mistake, right? That was huge. That was massive, and that was a big assumption. The wrong assumption to make. So as we began to start our strengths journey, I pointed out, hey, I have activator, you have activator. Why aren't you taking action? I'm taking action, right? And so it wasn't until it was 10 months later, I was sitting there on a Sunday and I felt this impression that I want to become my best self. And that's when I read my report, and I read my activator and I thought, wow, that's crazy. It was the first time I read my report, by the way. Okay. So I'm just being totally honest. When I read my page, in this case would be page 7, right? My insight theme, I read my activator, and then I was like, wow, my activator relates a lot to my positivity and woo. My wife's activator, I wouldn't imagine it would be the same thing. Up until that point, I had no clue that those pages 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 are actually customized. I had no clue. So when I read my wife's activator, that was it. I was like, oh my gosh, I have been going about this all wrong. And it is no doubt in my mind. Am I an action-based person? Absolutely. Is my wife an action-based person? When my wife's on fire, believe you me, like she is incredible. But what are important are the needs that come before the action for us. Her strategic, her futuristic need to be involved, need to be cherished, need to be nurtured, need to be showcased, need to be influenced for her activator to take place. Me, I just got to feel good. New stuff, I'm game, right? I'm game for change. And so
I don't care how you feel about it. I need to know what the plan is. You feel great about it. What's the steps? What are we doing?
Yeah. So I just want to point this out, because this right here, regardless of the fact, because people ask me all the time, well, they make the same assumption I do. Oh, I have this and they have this, or we both have these 3, or we all have these 4, or we're both relationship builders. And they don't understand that the complexity of the talents in the way they lie and the combinations within them that really make up a massive amount of who you are. So when people say, Philip, I don't want to take this personality assessment because I don't want to be put in a box, I promise you this, you will never be put in a box with Clifton Strengths. Never. I mean, the fact that we're both activators, we're totally different. The fact that she has strategic and futuristic at number 1 and 2, and I have it at number 7 and number 6 and at number 9. The fact that I have positivity at number 1 and she has positivity at number 6. So many different themes, just because we have the themes in there. Her and I are worlds apart, and when it comes time to different, in terms of, not necessarily in the terms of what we want, right? We want a great marriage. We want our kids. We want homes. We want travel. We want the same goals, but how we go about them, how we process, how we feel, what motivates us, our needs, worlds apart. So this is the beauty and really the study behind Clifton Strengths, that when people choose to take the assessment, that's just the beginning of the journey. It's literally the tip of the iceberg. The journey begins when you begin to look at your behavior. You begin to understand the way you feel. You begin to take in consideration all these different things and how these natural themes influence all the things you do. Now, with that being said, I want to answer Maya Lisa's question. I think this is a phenomenal question, by the way. So relationships are hard enough before you add physical or mental challenges, right? Wouldn't you all agree? I mean, raise your hand if you'd agree. I agree. Right? Before you add mental or physical challenges, my wife, by the way, she married me at my sickest point in my life. There we go. So she married me at the sickest point in my life. And so she was, right, we had a huge, we had a huge challenge. Sorry, she's going to step away real quick. We had a huge challenge, right, from a health perspective as we began our relationship. Now, so there were already those challenges, already those dynamics. Now, the question here that she's asking, so how do our strengths impact and improve our health, physically and mentally? Now, first off, from a mental perspective, I'll just address this one. The mental perspective is absolutely massive. Because our natural way of thinking, feeling, behaving dramatically impacts our subconscious behavior, right? So it not just impacts your conscious decision making or your conscious feelings or your conscious behavior, but it impacts your subconscious behavior. So you could be living 20 years, right? Like us, 20 years of bad habits, of baby, we got this, of let's get on the same page type of thing. And though that was just part of me and my woo, part of my positivity, part of what I wanted and my relator with this relationship. And it was no doubt about it impacting my mental, struggles, my mental game, my mental hurt, because I felt wrong, right? I felt us broken. I felt that's why we did all these things, because we wanted greatness, we wanted perfection, no doubt about it. And because all these different things, I thought, oh, something's wrong with her, me, us, right? All these different things. And it impacted me, no doubt about it, from a mental perspective. I'll speak for myself, but it also impacted from a physical perspective, because how many of you, right, by the raise of hands, have you ever been depressed because of a relationship, right? Have you ever felt depressed because you're not getting along, depressed because you're not connecting, right? You feel depressed because you want this thing to work so bad.
Why don't they understand me?
Yes.
Why are they doing this? Like the resentment, shame, guilt, all of those things can really compound and build when you feel misunderstood, when you don't understand the other person. Why would they do this to me? Why would they push me like this? Why would they, right? Getting out of your comfort zone can sound great, but you have to choose into that. So many things and so many dynamics. That's why that statement of getting on the same page, like, how are we raising the kids? What are our family rules? What are our interpersonal rules? Like, how come I can't express myself? Like, do I feel heard? All of those things are super real. And really, if you look at our top 10, you're like, oh my gosh, they probably get along great. They've got 6 out of the same top 10. I will say though, I have self-assurance pretty high, and I think it probably toggles, because I will say something, I will call you the wrong name so hard, you'll be like, maybe that is my name, because I said it with such certainty. And that can sound great and like, oh, she's so confident. That can be any of our strengths can, when we play them in the basement, can be to our detriment. And so number one, Socrates says, know thyself. And so learning about yourself is a number one key factor. And then learning about your partner, because we all know that the effect, and I'm just circling back to answer Lisa's question, because I feel like it's such a profound and very important and impactful question, that the impact of stress that we have from our day-to-day lives, the way that it affects your health, it depends on how you process. So I'm a solitary processor. I need time to deliberate and to think things through, because even though in my top 10, if you look at my chart, I think I have 4 relationship, which is the blue strengths, in my top 10. But if you go to my page 21, then you can see that my domains play out that I'm a strategic thinker first. So for me, I process mentally. I don't process verbally. So if we're having a conversation that I'm not feeling good about, and I shut down and I am no longer engaging and talking, I have exited the chat. Like, Melissa's gone, you've lost her. And that can be difficult. There's a lot of layers to that. So it can feel like I'm being combative and fighting if I'm engaging verbally still, but you've still got me. Like you can still, that just means I'm trying to process with you. But if I've gotten to the point where I'm no longer talking, that's a cue, like, oh boy, she has retreated to the depths of her internal processor. I'm no longer involved here. Um, and um, but once I've done the processing, I express very quickly. So Philip, and if you've listened to any of his other, just really quickly, he had a lot of internal, like when he says I married him at his sickest, his body was very close to dying. Like his systems were shutting down because he didn't grow up in an environment where it was okay for him to express. So he would implode when things weren't going right. So that statement, when we say things, oh my gosh, this is eating me up, this is eating me alive, it literally, that's I very much believe in that. We've got to be very careful in the way we choose our words and the language, how we express ourselves, because our body is listening, and his body was certainly listening. And so the way that he couldn't express himself, and the impact, the way he had grown up, and the way he had made a habit of handling and processing or not processing emotion stressors, affected his health so deeply, he was literally not processing food anymore. And creating ulcers and all of those things. His body was literally becoming toxic and acidic because he was never expelling any of that. So the impact that the way we communicate, process, understand ourselves and others can dramatically impact your health, positive or negative. Now, it took a lot of mental work to create new habits, doing tappings. There's so many modalities you can find to be able to reprogram some poor habits. But I do think that step one is understanding yourself, and step two is then choosing to re-examine your relationships with a lens of understanding. And so being able to examine, oh my gosh, we've got 6 of the same strengths, that just now turns into oh, we must be the same, into wow, I'd love to learn more about how you're connecting. This works for you. This is how it works for me.
Yeah.
This is what I enjoy. This is what feeds me. And that's another part of learning about how your strengths and how you operate is, what do you find healing? Do you heal with people? You want people around you? Do you heal separately? Do you heal? I mean, I think everyone heals in nature because it's just part of who we are. It's part of how we're designed. So are we intentional about those things?
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot. So, there's when it comes time to the way you naturally think, feel, and behave, and I love what Melissa said about, how do you heal? There is a lot that goes on. There's a lot that happens so that people can experience success or mental clarity or physical health. So the way you naturally think, feel, and behave dramatically impacts so much of that. So fantastic question. Okay, so let's jump into the actual, because I'm sure people want to get to know a little bit more about Melissa, because obviously we can talk all day about stories and different things. But I want to know from your perspective, Melissa, so what, and I've shared kind of my perspective when I first got invited to take the assessment. What were your thoughts? So you got invited to take the assessment. What were your thoughts about actually taking the assessment? And then what were your thoughts about your results when you got them?
So I was excited because I love learning more about myself. So I thought, oh, this will be fun. And then I, at first, like seeing you, strategic thinker, I just made me feel kind of nerdy, and I wasn't that excited about diving into each of the themes. I'm like, oh, what? There's like, some people have some of these really beautiful strengths. First, like belief is their number one, or empathy sounds lovely. There are so many things that I like, oh, they're so, they just sound so beautiful, but really it's really not the name of the strength so much as the way that theme is defined and how it plays in your life. So I actually didn't really fall in love with it until I started to dive more into who I am personally, and really understanding how unique each of our results are was super cool.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
have individualization at probably, I think it's at number 10. So to me, I don't like the kind of personality test where you're like, oh, well, you're a green and you're a yellow. Because I'm like, no, not every, you can't just blanket label somebody. That's so lame. We're so multifaceted as human beings. How can you just say, oh, I know all about you. You're a type 1 or you're a type 4. That sure, that's a piece or a component to the puzzle, but being able to really dive in and say, oh, okay, this is what drives and motivates the things that I do in my life. It's what drives and motivates my relationships, or it's what drives and motivates me to learn. That part was fun to really
Cool.
understand that.
Cool. Yeah, that was a journey for both of us. I remember going through that. I remember her looking up, strategic and futuristic, and she's like, huh? But for those of you that know how ridiculously smart she is, how she processes information, and there's no doubt about it, that, I mean, it's pretty true. Those are definitely themes and needs that definitely operate for her. Now, next question. So you took your assessment, you were excited to do it, you saw this, and you're like, okay, your first impression of it. So of all the information that you had there, you mentioned individualization, you mentioned self-assurance. What was the theme? What was maybe the domain? What was the thing that really stood out from your report? Like, what stood out and you're like, whoa, okay, let me dive into that, or I don't like that, or what stood out the most, you think, for you?
Like a specific theme.
Sure.
Or a specific domain? But I mean,
All of it, anything.
oh, okay, that's an interesting question. I did like, I guess almost all of it, because so one thing I was surprised about, so I graduated high school 2 years early. I was kind of a nerdy kid, straight A student, all of those things. So I was a little surprised that themes such as achiever and learner were in my teens. So I was good at those things. I excelled there, but it wasn't what drives me. Because so, I graduated when I was 15 years old, and my mom was like, oh, she's going to be the first, 20-year-old neurosurgeon. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't interest me. I'm not doing that. And because I mean, looking back, I probably would have made some different choices in my life, but it's really not what drives who I am. So it was really validating to kind of see kind of myself on paper, and to understand, oh, okay, yeah, I'm not driven by that. That's not, I love learning, but it's not something that drove the direction of my life.
Nice.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Because I think what's important is that when we look at our report, and when we look at, so for example, for me, what stood out the most was this idea of these influencing strengths. Like, I've never ever thought of myself as an influencer. I didn't think, woo, activator, communication, these were the influencing strengths. So I never saw myself as an influencer. And it wasn't until that I took this assessment and I looked at it and I was like, whoa, these are, like what Melissa said, these are needs. Although she was successful in learning, she was successful in school, right? Very successful. What she realized that the strategic, the futuristic, all these other things, those are the processes that really motivated all the learning, all the graduating early, that sort of thing. Same thing for me. I never knew that I was an influencer. And when I realized that my positivity is a major part of how I love influencing people, I looked back at, things that I've done, or I looked back at, I was a Taekwondo coach for a long time and I was really good at it and I loved it. And it had everything to do with, the way I pumped people up. Like, if I could be I think of, what I could have chosen to, a professional hype man. I would have been a phenomenal professional hype man. Like, where I walked behind you and be like, you can do it. You got this. You're gonna cry. And I have a theme song that I start singing to you, in the back of your eye.
Not too late.
No, it is not too late at all.
Any one of you, if you're about to do something, you have to give like a big talk on Sunday.
Call me. I'm your hype man.
Call him 5 minutes before. I've done that a lot. Like, yeah, Philip, I have to go do this thing. So when I'm in the process of getting ready, though, I'm like, stop hyping me up. I'm trying to focus, I'm trying to get this done. I'm trying to write this thing that I've got to say. And because he loves to, it is really sweet, but it's very distracting.
So
He's
for
like,
me,
you can do, you got it. I'm like, I know. Let me write it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Pour it on, hype me up. I'm ready now. I did the brain work. No, like make me feel great about
So
it.
that was a big thing for me when I took when I looked over my assessment. I was like, oh wow, I am an influencer, but I don't do it the same way you would consider, like, you know, maybe influencers that do different things. And so I didn't know that about
Right,
myself.
like
So
a
that was,
blogger or
yeah,
Instagrammer or
right.
whatever.
And so I saw this and I'm like, oh wow, this is how I influence. This is how I want to be. This is how I want to operate my life. And so that was a big, so again, thank you for answering the question, because the I think we all gained some awareness, or, you know, oh, this stood out or that stood out. And it's always fun to listen, you know, as to what, you know, what triggers for people. So
Well, and I think in this stage too, a really beautiful thing about knowing each other so well is that I know the things that he loves doing.
yeah,
So he can't, if I've got to write a paper, if I'm writing something, um, or I'm trying to think of an example that it has to be in my mind done a certain way, and that's not necessarily his skill set, but he wants to help me. I know that it makes him feel good about us and our relationship if I do go to him with a piece of help me with this, right? Don't we all feel that? We want to feel needed and wanted and appreciated for who we are. So at this point, there are things that I intentionally seek out to say, he's good at this, he can help me with this. I could call my friend Jen to go, hey Jen, I'm nervous about this. Or I could go, hey Philip, you want to hype me up for this? This is going to be great. Or I'm feeling sad about this. Can you help me? Because for me, if my strategic and my futuristic, if I can't think my way through to a solution, or if I've got a subconscious program running that is, you know, kind of beating me down or eating me up a bit, and I say, you know, I need help, steer me. I can't see through. Will you help me there? And that is when you can lean on each other for strengths, and then it can create a closeness. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to express here is that once you understand who you are, what you need, what drives you, what motivates you, what hinders you, what brings you down, then that awareness piece, then you can really partner with your partner and partner with, or your friends. Like even in business, I'm highly aware of what Kim's strengths are. I'm highly aware of what Laura's strengths are. I know when I can go to them for things, and it creates I would say an environment that is so compelling and uplifting that it just enhances everything. It's really I think we all, I mean, raise your hand if you've been in a job or in a situation where like, wow, I am not enjoying this. I wish I could choose out right now. Or whether it's a school dynamic, or, you know, parent teacher interactions, or if you go to church and there's a church community thing and you're trying to plan stuff together, like understanding where people come from, and even having some basic understanding of some strengths, you can realize, okay, well, this person is detailed oriented because for them it feels irresponsible if they don't.
yeah.
And this person loves to fly by the seat of their pants. So they don't realize that makes this person feel unsafe. How can I bridge a gap there? So without saying, well, you're just this and you're that, we don't have to throw on labels, but being able to understand people and what makes them tick, then you can, especially with intimate relationships, close family relationships, you know, your children, and seeing them for who they are, and you can see their struggles and you can help pull them up and help them be, you know, the best versions of them. I think that's all that we want to do in this life, is to be the best possible version of us. But we can't always see our own hiccups, and we can't always see what's the best about us. And so being able to, for us in our marriage, it's so funny. I would never, if you would have told me before the assessment, if someone said, oh, okay, how do you think this is going to play out for you and Philip? I'd be like, polar opposites. He's this, I'm that. We are polar opposites. And then oh, well, you guys have 6 of the same top 10 things. I'd be like, no, that can't be, no way. But then what it's given to us is this new vocabulary and language of how to talk with each other. And we can each find within the strengths that we do share, what we do have in common there, and it's really just a depth of understanding and connection that, and I do have connectedness number 5 or something. So that is super important to me, to understand how I connect with people and why I'm important in their lives. So it's just brought a richness to our relationship that I appreciate.
And again, some clarity, right? For those of you that have ever maybe learned a second language, spoke a second language, knowing how to speak the language of someone else dramatically changes the conversation, doesn't it? It's huge. So the fact that my wife, knowing, because she naturally thinks, feels, and behaves in a different way, or anyone for that matter, any partner, any relationship you have, and that I do, if I know the language that she's speaking from, I may not know exactly how to speak it right back to her, but I can understand it, right? I can get through it. And I'm not quick to assume, I'm not throwing out judgment. So again, the value of, and this is where our relationship has changed, because it changes our clarity, it changes our awareness, it changes our conversations around issues, around things, around goals, around everything, because we now can pinpoint, oh, this is where she's coming from. It's coming from her futuristic or her activator or her connectedness. And she knows where my come from is. So there's more patience, there's less judgment, there's less frustration, right? Because we understand, oh, he is successful, or she is successful, and this is what makes them that. So I love that.
It can really diffuse some of the escalated emotion that we can have when we're clashing. So I feel like that's what it's really done for us, to really diffuse situations. Because really, I don't know how many are familiar with the 4 Agreements. Have you read that book?
Great book.
Lovely. If you haven't, I highly recommend it.
Phenomenal book.
But I think it's is it number 2, second agreement? Don't take anything personally. It's really empowering to be able to, so when you understand where someone's coming from, then you can, it no longer feels like you're under attack. So like a classic thing that we used to do is he'd say, hey Blabe, let's do this. And I'd be like, okay, well, what's your plan for that? What's the first step? And you would say,
we're just going to do it.
No, well, yes. But you would say, why are you picking apart my dream?
Oh,
Alyssa?
right.
And I'm like, no. Like, this is me supporting you. I'm like, let's define the steps so we can get there. He's like, oh, you're nitpicking me. Right.
Yep.
And so it would create this escalated, he's trying to share with me. And instead of just listening, I would start to, let me do what I'm good at. Yes. Step 1, let's organize it. Step 3.
I'm coming at her from a positivity. Her strategic goes in. We don't know that. I didn't know his strategic. She doesn't know my positivity. And so what happens? Boom, boom, boom. Volcano eruption, chaos, right?
Right. You never listen to me. I'm just trying to share with you. I'm like, I'm not just listening. I am taking notes.
And then it goes right back to what your question, right, Maya Lisa? How does that affect the mental state of the relationship?
Well,
right?
then we shut down. Well, I'm not talking. I'm not sharing with you.
Yep.
I'm like, fine. Well, I'm not going to help you because that was weird. And
so when we go right back to that same conversation, I come at her positivity, excited, my activator. Her strategic clicks in.
My activator also clicks in. I'm like, oh, we can make a plan. Oh, this is great. I'm good at plans.
And then it changes that initial dynamic. So again, we were married we're going on 22 years. We took the assessment a little over 3 years ago, and the impact that it's made in our life.
We started implementing it maybe about 2.
Yeah, 100%. Okay,
so that's a good question right here before we move on. How often should we retake the tests?
And where do we take it? Okay, so if you want to take the assessment, okay, if you want to, I'm going to just go to gallup.com. Okay, this is where you go to gallup.com to take the assessment. Now, I will say this. I do know, oops, sorry. Let me go. Can you retype that for me, hon? So that everyone sees it. Just gallup.com. Because they posted in the House and Panels. Thanks.
Oh, I see.
Number one, I very rarely encourage people to retake the assessment, because we're often, so the only times you should ever retake the assessment is when you've gone through a significant life change. Now, divorce, cancer, my gosh, maybe even a traumatic change in, with just life. Those definitely can shift a lot of our perspectives, especially maybe with where we were operating from a different perspective. So some of those things can change. But outside of that, so Gallup they have a 7.6 reoccurrence rate. So 7.6 times out of 10, you're going to get the same results. There was a gal that I went through. She had, when I got certified, she had breast cancer. She took her assessment 2 years prior, went through, chemo, everything, went through a total life change, relationship change. And still, when she retook the assessment, after all of that was done, there were just a few that moved from almost all the top 10. All the top 10 were pretty much the same, but one. And then there are a few that changed, I think, from number 3 to number 1, and a couple different dynamics like that. So and the reason why
isn't that interesting? We kind of just are who we are.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I guess for me, there's
so hold on, let me finish answering
a
this.
fundamental truth in that.
So the no, it's okay. So I would just, Don Clifton said, right? He said that for people to really know who they are and study who they are, it would take a lifetime for them to master their top 5. And I believe that. Like I mean, Melissa can attest how many times a day I use the word strengths in my home, with my family, with my kids, with everything that I do. In fact, my son was joking with me the other day, Manolo. He's like, "Oh, Papa, he was talking to some people at Sebastian's farewell, and he's like, 'Oh, you mean my dad, the gut strengths mentor?' 'Yeah, he's my dad. It's the gut strengths mentor.' 'Yeah, it's my dad, the gut strengths mentor.'"
So he hears gut health and strength.
Yeah, a lot.
So
I'm still learning how to be the best Philip Ramos. That's the truth. I am learning how to be the best Philip Ramos. Before you decide to take the assessment again, if you've already taken it, if it's just a matter of even just a few years, I would definitely encourage you to dive deep into your assessment. Really figure out, okay, why is this talent at number 1? Why is this talent at number 3? What are the needs behind this? What are the motivators? Why do I struggle? Why do I hinder so much? With this, there is so much information that you can gather from. Strengths literally is the best personal self-development journey I've ever been on. And Melissa and I have been on a lot of self-development journeys. We've spent tens of thousands of dollars on our self-development journey. And I'm grateful for every penny because it's made us who we are. But strengths is one that I could never duplicate. I can never duplicate the growth or the awareness. I can never duplicate the outcome. I have learned so much, and I'm still learning a ton. So before people take the assessment, I really encourage them to really dive really aggressively, really deep into it, so they have a clear understanding of why these results came out the way they did. What does it mean? How do they operate? And that sort of thing. Does that make sense? So I hope that answers your question, because I think that's super important. So. Okay, so next is Melissa. So we've obviously shared a lot of stories, talked about a lot of different things. What would you say is your superpower? So this could be, again, a domain, a talent, a theme, maybe even a combination. What would you say you're like, man, I am really good at this? When it comes time to strengths and how that's shown up for you, how you've seen it in your maybe past experiences, how when you look forward to things, you're like, okay, I want to accomplish this thing, this goal. I know that this is important to me. What would you say your superpower is?
So I think that's kind of a fun question, isn't it? I think when I'm at my best is coming out of feeling like I was dying in bed last week. I just was not feeling good. So all the world was gray. When I'm at my best, I feel like I use my strategic to activate people. If that makes sense. I feel like I can, so on a personal level, I feel like when I'm at my best is I find clarity with my plan or my strategy to drive my life forward. So we've had some interesting times the last couple of years, and I feel as though I gave my power away, like my personal intrinsic, just what I'm in charge of for myself in my life, the thoughts inside of our heads, being shut down or being, the fear, real or perceived, or both, and the escalation of that, and feeling like the end of it was so abstract. I found myself floundering a little bit. So I feel like my superpower is when I find my focus,
Mm,
and I find, which is maybe I think number 8 for me, and I find clarity and purpose in what I'm doing and where, like, and I can let all of the other things melt away. And that's when I feel like I'm partnered with my higher power, with God, and I know how to drive my life forward, and I can connect with people, and I can take you with me. Like, that was, I think, part of what you were speaking to at the beginning. We talk about self-development, and where my passion was, is that it was a new idea, a new concept for me, for the way that I was raised and grew up. And Philip and I are both from multicultural families, and so which is not uncommon right now, but as children it was not common. And uh, there is some programming there, um, that took some time to break free of. And for me, self-development, I apologize and get emotional, um, it was so liberating to feel like I have things that are not just good about me, they're great
mm.
about me. And I can use those things to drive my life in a direction that I choose, that's not defined by anyone else but me and the higher power I am partnering with. And it can affect and ripple out from my own life and touch those around me. And I can be a power and a force for good in this world.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So for those of my strengths enthusiasts, right, that know and or surround me, you can definitely hear that futuristic coming in strong, right? There is a strong level of futuristic right there, strong level of strategy when she talks about, knowing her way. And then that influencer that kicks in with her self-assurance, with her activator. So awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thanks, babe. That's
Thank you.
that's super. I think it's super important for all of us to recognize that we all have superpowers. And this is the great thing about you going bound to strengths, right? My positivity by itself isn't necessarily a superpower. It isn't my activator by itself as a superpower. It's the combination of my positivity, my communication, my strategic that make up my superpower. Same thing with Melissa. It's the combination of her focus, her self-assurance, her strategic, her futuristic that make up her superpower. And the same thing with you. And this is where strengths become so fun and so amazing, is when you give yourself permission to explore those combinations. So you're not just positivity, you're not just a green, you're not just a 4, you're not just a category, you are a complex human being with needs and motivators and complex processes, right? Your internal computer processor, the way you naturally think, feel, and behave is so complicated, but so amazing that it drives a level of passion, of joy, of something that of your superpower inside of you to accomplish everything that you do. And the more and more you learn about it and get in tune with it, it's time stands still. It's pure fun. It's pure creativity. It's pure enjoyment. And you can see that, right? When we tap into maybe whether if it's a place in our past or it's a place that in a recent moment, or even a place that we bring on that memory or those feelings and think, wow, what if I brought that Melissa or Philip or whoever, right, my first name is, to that goal? Mm-hmm. Watch out, world. Here comes Super Melissa, right? Watch out, world. Here comes Super Philip. So that's awesome. Okay, so as you look at the success, right, of I'll just say us, right, our successful there. But as you look at like our success and what you've seen in our marriage and what's changed, our success in what maybe our business, success in anything in life, or the things that you're doing, your relationships, where are you finding success in your life, and what strengths do you feel like are a major contributor to that success right now?
To my success, so for me, I've got to have the major contributors are staying connected with all the things that are good, that influence, like surround yourself with people that are like, just completely believe in the idea of, if you're the smartest person in the room, then there's no room to grow. So it's there's a continual pushing, kind of stretching, I guess, is if you will,
Futuristic.
futuristic. Like, hey, I want to go here. Like, how can I, what can I do to associate with the people who can support in bringing out the best out of me? So I tend to, I know myself enough to know, well, I've got to have a plan for things. I know that I flounder when I'm not having a good routine AM PM, just on a personal daily basis, and then with business, and understanding that I love having a plan and a direction and action steps. And so there's oh, I can't remember the name of the person who developed it. So kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's another strengths based,
Q12.
the Q12.
Yeah, Gallup is the one.
Is that Gallup?
It's Gallup.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was
Yeah.
or not, because I had attended a different seminar for that. Anyway, so being able to really understand just the first Q. So it's, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's base needs that you can reach self-actualization. But the very first basic need is, do you have food, water, shelter? Do you feel safe? Do you have community? So there are these steps of evolution to how we can self-actualize, and then they kind of repeat. So okay, then you upgrade. Well, okay, so how can I upgrade my food, water, shelter? Oh wow, I feel even better. So you're kind of evolving through life. So the same thing with in the Gallup strengths, there's Q1 through 12, and the basic one is, do I know what's expected of me? So for me, that's a basic need in my
Yeah.
life. I need to know, like, oh, okay, we're gonna get married. What does a wife mean to you? What is expected of me when
Yeah.
before you say yes into this thing?
Yeah.
Babies, I'm sorry, don't come with that. I wasn't entirely prepped for that. Like, oh, here's a baby. They can't tell you like what is expected of me. Oh, you're expected to wake up every 2 hours. Anyway, so what is expected of me in all of the situation, every aspect of your life? Do you know? Like, if you participate in community things, if you participate in a marriage, what, you know what? Maybe we should have a
Sit down.
a sit down and a reevaluation. Like, okay, to be more effective, like, if the trash isn't getting taken out, oh, was I expecting you to take it out, or were you expecting me to take it out? Maybe we should define that. So that's super important to me. And then Q2, do I have the tools to be able to do so? Like, so do I know what's expected of me? Do I have the tools to carry out my position, my job, my tasks? And then they go from there. And so that, I think, is I know myself enough to understand that, to be able to have and set myself up to win, I need to know what's expected of me, and there needs to be agreement there, and have a plan to execute and get and do it.
I love that. So I just want to point out, because it's fun to listen, right? It's fun to listen to how people describe in certain things. So as Melissa talks, you can definitely see her futuristic, right? Knowing where she wants to go, knowing what she wants to create, knowing that big thing in mind, and that plan in what she talks about, right? Those the pyramid system and the foundation being, do I know what's expected of me? Then do I have the tools to be successful? That's very strategic thinking. That's a very strategic perspective. And then being able to take action. And then I love what she talked about in terms of, right, what you see, the, surrounding yourself around people and that connection in your relator. So it's interesting is that when we speak, right, when people speak, we do speak from our needs. We speak from our motivators. They're very clear. And when we give ourselves permission to really honor who we are, it comes out in what we do and what we value. And so I hope that, and again, this is what's so fun about doing these interviews, is that when people are talking, I hope you can pick up on some of these things. They may be similar to what yours are, but you have to understand what is the motivator for that thing. So you may have a similar desire, what Melissa's talking about, connecting to other people, not being the smartest person in the room, but connecting to other people where she can grow and develop and be, her future from. So you may have a similar thing, but where does yours come from? Knowing where hers comes from dramatically influences her decision making. Knowing where yours comes from can also do the same. Okay. So love that. Absolutely love that. Now,
Is there one more question?
no, no, not, so now that, so we've talked a lot about success. We've talked a lot about awesomeness, right? Superpowers and all that great stuff. But let's talk about the reality too. There's also a realness to strengths. And this is where the awareness piece, this is probably my favorite piece to work on with people, because this is the thing that most people either want to push away, want to say doesn't exist, want to be blinded to, because we just want to think of how we operate and how awesome we are. And although that's fun, and although, don't get me wrong, that's my positivity, I'll do that all day long. But in order to really help, you have to recognize, how has the very way you naturally think, feel, and behave also hindered you? How has it caused problems in your relationship? How has it hindered your career? How has it hindered, I can tell you a million stories how my activator has hindered my career, or my positivity has hindered my relationship. Baby, we got this, right? No matter, it's just
We
little
don't got
things
this unless we have a plan.
That's
I
right.
don't care what you. I don't care how
That's
good you
right.
feel.
So
That's amazing.
so the reality of strengths and talents, what would you say, Melissa, is the one you struggle with the most? Like that you find either in your basements more often, in a place that you really struggle with, that hinders you, and you realize, oh wow, this one's getting in the way of relationship, or it gets in the way of your goals. Maybe you overdo it, right? What do you think that talent is that's there for you?
I think it's the thing that drives me, is the thing that I trip over. So futuristic and strategic and activator. So I will be stagnant and immobile if I can't picture how the outcome is going to be. Like I don't enjoy stepping into situations that I'm like, but see, that's a choose in. I was thinking on, like, I'm not going to get on a roller coaster ride if I don't know where it's headed. I have to see the whole thing. Like, okay, I can handle that. Yes, I choose in. Fantastic. It's going to be great. I do. It does trip me up a lot to not, and life is not mapped out.
Yeah.
So for me personally, that can trip me up a lot, because there are so many variables, and I have definitely become stuck in times of my life, even after having massive momentum, because I've been arrested in my progress for the sole reason that I couldn't see the next step to take, where the growth was going to go from there. There was a misunderstanding in agreement or expectation. And and not knowing how to, so adaptability is like in my bottom, maybe the bottom one, right? Bottom two, it's low. So pivoting can be difficult for me. And that was also difficult to understand about myself, like to kind of admit to myself, because I'm like, I'm a team player, I'm flexible. No, I'm not. I am not. Like, it takes a minute for me to get on board for things, and I can see how that is challenging. Like, I can be honest about myself at this point. Like, I have been humbled to my knees at times, because let's be honest, relationships, and including and especially marriage, there are times where it's like, whoa, did I make a big mistake? Did I know enough about myself? You guys, we get married so young. Like, who knew what they were doing? I didn't. Like, if you guys had it all figured out, power to you. But I was kind of an idiot. And then, so right, knowing about myself and then knowing about you, and like, whoa, okay, all right, okay, whoa, and kind of pulling the covers off, and seeing, okay, what are we dealing with here? And can we move forward together? And can we create harmony? And can I fulfill you? And are you willing to meet me halfway? And are you willing to address some of my needs? And am I willing to identify them and articulate them and take all the guessing out? And does that make sense? Like, I know that was maybe kind of a deeper answer to that, but really, it's like the thing I want the most is an instruction manual, and the thing we literally do not get in life is an instruction manual. We have some guidelines, like, okay, do these things and you'll find happiness and purpose. And then I'm like, oh, okay, okay, can I dip my toe in? Do I have to? Is it an all-in situation? But it is like whether you want to acknowledge it or not, we are all in. We're here. There, we're all in right now. So this, I think, strengths for me has once you kind of embrace the good and the bad of it, then you realize, okay, this is what I have to deal with. Where can I be my best? And where can I shed,
Yeah.
you can go through each of your own strengths, and we can each write out, oh, where have I been told that's not good? Where have I told, oh, I'm to this, I'm to that. Any of those things, I feel like strengths really does give a voice and an opportunity for ownership of who you are, what you want to do, to be able to really validate yourself, and then let go, you really to truly let go of all of the other feedback that doesn't serve. And then we find this community where we can talk about it openly, and oh, there's this guy who's really good at it, maybe I can ask him some questions, and how can I own who I am so that I can be the best version of me and move forward in my life in that confidence.
So I want to bring up something because I always love moments like this, because it's always right, a little mentoring moment, teaching moment. And I want all of you to be able to learn from this particular thing, that what Melissa's talking about. And I've talked a little bit about this before, right? Of understanding your process, understanding your needs. So my positivity woo activator, and then Melissa's strategic futuristic and activator. So often people look at these ideas. She's talking about her adaptability. You see it right there, number
Yeah.
33.
Bottom. So if I start saying yes to everything you say, just know Melissa has exited the chat, because
So
I never do that.
so what's important to look at here, and this is with any assessment, okay? Any assessment, I want this to be a learning moment. People often will look at the bottom and be, these are my weaknesses, these are what I should stay away from. And although all those are true, there's self-sabotage, this is where I model or mirror other people, those things are true. Where you literally become, and I think you use the word arrested, or where you literally become like you're just like just stopped in your tracks, nothing moving forward. It's because you're stuck somewhere up here. It's literally because these needs are such drivers, they're such motivators, they are such core needs. If you're stuck in relationship, if you're stuck in business, if you're stuck in your personal growth, if you're stuck in your personal goals, you're stuck up here. This is where you're stuck, because there's certain needs, there's certain plans, there's certain dynamics, there's certain things that are not being met. And more importantly, you're not being aware of them. This is fun, by the way. I hope you're having a blast. I hope you're learning, because this is a little inside peek, right? Of, obviously I'm a strengths coach, and this is super important to me. And Melissa gets to kind of hear, and I'll go upstairs after an event, or after an appointment or something, or after a class, and she's like, oh, I like how you said this, or hey Philip, so does this mean this, or does this mean, kind of thing. And so she's always learning and growing from what I'm sharing. But what's interesting is that right here is where everyone gets stuck, regardless of how much. This is where I get stuck. I get stuck right here, the same place you guys get stuck in your top 5, in your top 3 that are such big motivators for you. So it's important that as you create, as you move forward, as you decide, okay, who do I want to be? How do I want to approach this situation? How do I want to master this goal? How do I want to create this thing? How do I want to take action in a place where, in a place that I'm struggling with? All of these are very important awareness questions that you really need to get and look at inside of your top, really your top 5, but most often than not, it's really your top 3. There are things there are needs, there are motivators, there are processes that need to be checked, that need to be done. And when they are not, there is literally a moment of it's a quicksand moment. It's a concrete block moment, right? Where you're stuck in your, and you can't move your feet, but you can, you're ready to tip over, any direction, because of overwhelm, because of burnout, because of all these different things. But really, those things that you're looking for, those things that you need that are right there on the tip of the tongue, that when you say, man, if I could have this, then this would equal this, it's right there. Like when Melissa talks about this idea of an instruction guide, I can't tell you how many times, and this has probably been the greatest thing about strengths when it comes time to my marriage, is how important it is for the instruction guide. So that when something's going on, I'm like, hey babe, let's do this. I have to present the instruction guide with the, hey babe, let's do this. Does that make sense?
And
It's
then you can talk about it with all the
10 times
enthusiasm.
better received when I go at it at that point. So I just want to make sure that you recognize the importance and the value of that. All right.
Oh, let's
So-
wait, I'm sorry, I'm not keeping up on the chat. That is the best comment ever. The instructions that we have for life are like the instructions for a piece of IKEA furniture.
It's so true.
That is so true.
So true. So
You're
true.
like, what? Do I have a piece A?
Yeah.
I don't see a slot B.
So
It says do it with a friend. I don't know.
so with that being said, so let's wrap this up. So 2 questions here. Number 1, what is the greatest thing that you've learned from you taking the strengths assessment? What's the greatest thing that you've learned on being on your strengths journey? What's the greatest aha or awareness piece? How has strengths impacted your life?
I would say the being able to really fall in love with who I am and the way that I do things, and that these are the things that are good about me. And then to be able to fully live that way and understand, like, okay, even though sometimes they can trip me up, these are my heaven sent, God-given talents. This is who I'm meant to be, and this is who I can be at my best. Like what I love about it is you can see like there's no negative. I love the positive languaging around it. So instead of saying, but what's bad about your self-assurance is that you'll call someone their name so hard they don't dare to say, actually, it's Melissa. What it says is, well, here's a little blind spot to watch out for. It's just, I feel like it's a very nurturing way to say, hey, here's how your brain and your heart operate together, and this is how you live your life.
Yeah.
If you cannonball into the deep end of this, you can live an excellent life and you can love doing it. That's what I like about it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So last question here. What would you so someone that's starting out, so let's say someone's watching this recording, someone's here brand new, someone's, just starting out their strength journey. What would be the number 1 tip that you would give them? Knowing what you know now, knowing everything that you've gone through, knowing the information you have, what would be the suggestion, the recommendation, the tip that you would say, do this, this dramatically increased, your understanding, your whatever it is. What would you say to someone?
The number 1 tip, and they want to take the assessment, is that what
so they've taken the assessment, they're
Okay.
starting their strengths journey. What's the number 1 tip you or recommendation you tell them?
That's a good question. I would say be a little bit flexible in the title of the theme. So understanding that that's kind of a fluid word, like strategic. Don't I would say be open to kind of letting go of any negative connotations you have around certain words. Be willing to just almost kind of piggybacking on my last comment, is recognize this is identifying what is absolutely good, unique, and amazing about you, and own that, fully own it.
Yeah.
And really dive into yourself. I mean, what is it? 1 out of every million, your results are so unique.
1 in 33 million.
1 in 33 million. That's amazing. That's super cool. So being able to go, hey, this is who I am, and own this. I believe I said it towards the beginning, and I'll say it again right now. I think one of the greatest things that we can do is that quote from Socrates, is to know thyself.
Yeah.
Why? Because you're living your life, and you can do it on accident, or you can do it on purpose, with drive and motivation, feeling great about who you are, and having both hands on the steering wheel and driving it in the direction you want to go. Doesn't mean you won't hit road bumps, but being able to know how to navigate yourself, all of the relationships in your life will improve.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining me today. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We've had a great crowd. Thank you. We have good attendance for these. So if you guys learned something, raise your hand. Raise your hand to show me some I want to know if you guys learned something, if you gained some value from this today. Excellent, 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 excellent. So
Thank you.
So as we wrap this up, two things. Number one is I want to invite you to. So Melissa and I are going to be on July 16th, Saturday at this same time, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's going to be a little bit longer. We're going to have a 4-hour workshop. Okay. So 4-hour workshop. It's completely free. All I ask is that you come with a strengths assessment. Now, we're going to do this for people that this is relationships. This is business partners. I have a couple mothers and daughters that are coming. I have a couple of entrepreneurs that work together. So this isn't for, you don't have to be married or anything like that. You don't have to come with your spouse. Anybody that you want to understand and appreciate working with in the strengths within relationships, this is going to be a workshop for you. We're going to learn. I want to teach you guys some things. I want to show you guys some things, how to recognize certain strengths, how to recognize certain dynamics, how to be aware of the value of this kind of connection and these sort of things. Because it has, I would have to say, and this is no doubt, this is one of the, it is not one of, it is the reason why I became a strengths coach. When I read her activator and my activator, and I realized how different they were, in that moment, I was like, I want to coach. I need to learn this. And that's why I became a strengths coach. It's why I do what I do, is not because of my own, my own talents, but it's because it's improved my level of my level of understanding of my marriage. It's improved my level of engagement in my marriage, in my relationships. I don't have a single relationship I go into making the assumption I know this person, I know what makes them tick, because I honestly don't. I want to go in asking questions, because I don't know honestly what their needs are. I honestly don't. My wife, 20 years almost before we took the assessment, and I had no clue that her operating system, I had no clue. As much as we've gone through all these different things, I still had nothing to go off of.
Landmark type things, all kinds of seminars,
we did it
all of 3 key stuff, which helped a lot.
Yeah.
We've honestly, it's like, okay, how do we get all our family members to take the strengths just so we can know how to talk to them?
Just so we can,
That's how much it helps to understand, what is what's your communication style? Like, it's amazing.
So email me. And this is completely free workshop. I'll send you the registration. So just email me, come attend,
right here,
come have fun.
Philip@3keyelements.com.
We're going to have an absolute blast. Melissa and I will do the entire workshop together. We'll have some fun breakout sessions and that sort of thing. If you're interested in talking to me about your strengths assessment, or if you're interested in understanding more about strengths, you can feel free to go here and book a call. I would love to chat with you. Again, I'm not passionate about this, not just passionate, I'm ridiculously passionate about it. And I am. I want to be, I want to be your hype man. I want to tell you how amazing you are and how to operate in what makes you amazing. That's the key. The key is not necessarily taking the assessment is literally just the beginning. It's just the beginning. What makes the assessment work is everything else after that. That's what really makes the assessment work. So thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We love you. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you for attending.
Yeah. And if you enjoy stuff like this, do me a favor. Every Wednesday night at 7 and every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. we do Q&A on Wednesday now, and then interviews on Saturday. So we're going to continue doing this. So please come join us. Come introduce people to strengths, the strengths movement, the strengths community. And so they get to see what's amazing about them as well. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a beautiful day.
We'll talk to you later. Weekend.
Bye-bye.